Welcome again. It's the run-up, getting ready for Atlanta United and DC United from Mercedes-Benz Stadium tomorrow. I'm Jason Longshore, flying solo this evening. Kelly and John are both attending to other things tonight, so you're stuck with me. We'll be taking your questions throughout the show. Tweet at me at Longshoe directly. You can also tweet at the show at Soccer Down Here. Let me know what you're thinking about this huge match tomorrow. It's not a must-win because if Atlanta doesn't win, the season's not over. It is as close to a must-win as you can have without being an actual true must-win because it's a home match. Because it's a home match in which you are favored. And it is a match against a team that you defeated 4-0 in their building not that long ago. Now, DC's a little different than they were at that point. They've changed a little bit. So we'll get into how they have changed. We'll get into what Atlanta's strengths are in this match, what they can lean to, how Atlanta can attack DC, and also how DC can attack Atlanta. This game's going to come down to the first goal, in my opinion. Neither team is all that great in coming from behind. Happiest of Joes, welcome. Thanks for stopping by. If you have any questions about Atlanta DC, throw them in, please, on the Twitch pitch. You can also join us if you're listening on the app and you want to see any visuals we have, which I'll have a little bit, hopefully. You will join us at twitch.tv/soccer down here. All of our programming that is live, or live to tape at least, goes up on Twitch as well as the app, as well as your podcatchers. So twitch.tv/soccer down here. Make sure you're following us there. Give us a subscription if you can, especially if you're an Amazon Prime member, because that's a bonus. That's very cool. All right, let's get into what's different about DC United right now, because they are a little different. Ben Olsen, not there anymore. Chad Ashton is in charge. They've changed the shape a little bit. The match against Cincinnati, they showed a different kind of formation, and we'll get into it here in just a sec. It's also going to be different in this case for Atlanta because it's the first time since the pandemic that spectators will be in the building. And Joe asks if the limited crowd will help at all since it is a limited number. I don't know what that number is. I've heard anywhere between, I think, 5 and 20,000. I don't know what that number ends up being. I think it's probably closer to the bottom end of the number. I think the biggest unknown is just how many people feel comfortable in attending. Having anyone in the building will help because it gives you something to bounce off of a little bit. If anybody's played in front of an audience, even if you're playing in a park and it's your friends watching and you hear your friends yelling for you, you get a little bounce in your step. So if you have a few thousand of your supporters in the building when times in the match get tough, when you start to have the momentum, it's going to help. It's going to be noticeable. I know for us on the radio broadcast, I can't wait because it feels like we're talking into space sometimes with nothing going on inside the building except for hearing the benches and the players on the field, which has been very cool. I'd love to not hear them anymore. You know what? I'd love to be able to feel the match a little bit better. And you don't feel the match as well without people in the building. That's where the emotion comes from. So I think it'll definitely have an effect. D. Graham, we're going to get into the tactics in just a second, and we're going to start with the DC side of it because I think that will affect the way Atlanta plays out a little bit. Joe asks, do we have everyone back? So both teams have had some issues with injuries. Atlanta United has everybody available but Joseph Martinez, obviously, and Edgar Castillo. Franco Escobar is not a definite. He is medically cleared to participate. They're not sure if he's going to be able to play in this one. Look, Atlanta's being cagey with these things. Any advantage you can find right now, if that makes the difference between getting into the postseason and not, if you're the club, you're going to take it. If you're Stephen Glass, you're going to take it. I have no problem with it. Franco Escobar we haven't seen since the Red Bulls match. I hope he's available. He might not be. Everybody else should be good to go. We haven't heard about any injury issues or fatigue issues coming out of last weekend. They did have a normal week this week, which helps a ton. So D. Graham asks about the tactics. Oh, sorry, the DC side. So they will be missing Paul Arriola, who they've been missing all year, Felipe, who has been injured for most of the season, Mohamed Abu, Stephen Birnbaum, which is a big miss for them. Junior Moreno was described as probable by Chad Ashton. Bill Hamid and Jordy Reyna are not listed as being unavailable. Hamid is likely to be available. Stephen Goff at the Washington Post speculated that Jordy Reyna would not be ready for the match here. One big thing for DC when you talk about that group, and you include Frederico Higuain, who they have traded to Miami now, 4 of your 5 leaders in touches per 90 minutes are not playing. The other one's probable in Moreno. So your guys who you're comfortable having with the ball at their feet are not playing here. That's going to affect the way DC plays. Now, Cincinnati gave them a lot of the possession last weekend. Atlanta's not going to do that. So how does DC correspond to that? That's what I'll be interested to see early on. So D. Graham asked, do we play a double 10 with Moreno and Heinemann behind a front 3 or just Moreno behind the front? I know we get hung up on 6-8-10s a lot. In this case, I think it's better to think of, is it 2 in front of 1 or is it 2 behind 1 in that midfield triangle? I don't think it's going to be a true 4-1-4-1 because our wingers generally push up very high and are connected to that front line. So if anything, it might be a 4-1-2-3. I think with Moreno and Heinemann, just because of their playing personalities, they're going to be in front of a 6. If it's those 2, I think they play generally in front of someone, likely Jeff Larentowicz. If it was Eric Remedi or Mo Adams, for example, it would play more like 2 behind whoever Moreno or Heinemann is playing. I think when you look at the way DC plays, I like the idea of Moreno and Heinemann playing because DC in the Cincinnati match shifted to a little bit of a 4-4-2 empty bucket kind of formation. Shiva, don't be depressed. Don't be depressed, Shiva. It's going to be okay. I did not read the article yet. I'm sorry. I have not had a chance to catch up on it this afternoon. I saw it posted. Look, it's easy to get depressed. This is a team that's played without its leading goal scorer all season long. And this is a team that has had a lot of injuries to deal with all season long. I think there are a lot of stories and narratives that are exaggerating any problems here. I think if you have Joseph Martinez this season, this is a very different season. As simple as that. Forget the rest of it. Forget any other moves. If you have your starting scorer, your starting striker, I think this is a very different season. Full stop. Full stop. So it's easy to get hung up on lots of different things, but that's something that's outside of your control. And they haven't been able to solve the problem as well as you would like. Yes, that is accurate. I think that is something that ultimately led to Frank de Boer no longer being here. He wasn't able to come up with a solution, and I don't think he trusted a solution because he kept trying different things. It's taken time, as Stephen Glass talked about yesterday in the media availability, to kind of build the team the way he wanted to build it and get back to those basics that we've been talking about, being a little more aggressive, being a little more in your face, being a little more secure defensively, because they'd got too open. Think back to early last year, it was not open enough. Then it became too open, and it did get too open. The 3-4-3, when it was out of balance, got way too open. So it took time to shift it back. I think they have. I think now they are primed to play their best soccer under Stephen Glass, and now the results become critical. Don't get depressed about articles, Shiva, please. It's depressing at times because of the results. Don't get depressed about articles looking at it from the outside. That's all I'll say. Let's get into the formations a little bit here. So I've got my trusty little tactics board with some magnets. This will show you a little bit easier and a little more visual of how this will work. So if you're listening to this, you might want to go to twitch.tv/soccer down here. You can always go and check it out. It'll stay up for a couple of weeks, so you can check it out. Shiva will continue on that. I haven't read the article, Shiva, so it's probably not fair for me to even talk about it, but I would disagree with what you just said in terms of that. Anyway, it's all good. This is the lifeblood of a team, you know? This is what happens. You have absences, you have transfers, you have things go wrong. Look, Liverpool's kind of depressed right now because Virgil van Dijk's out for a long period of time. How are they going to deal? That's the big question. How's it going to look? Don't know. A lot of people are asking. They're not the favorite anymore in England because of one injury. Real Madrid, I mean, they're coming off a La Liga title. Pretty depressed right now, talking about a hot seat for Zinedine Zidane. because they've lost 2 in a row. That's what can happen. That's the nature of this game. So it is a lot of pressure. And when you're a team like Atlanta, you have more pressure. If you are a team like Real Salt Lake, for example, and you're missing your star striker, well, chuck it in. No big deal. It is what it is. We don't have expectations anyway. This is different. Okay, so DC against Cincinnati. They played a 4-4-2, kind of empty bucket style. 2 center backs, 2 wing backs or outside backs, 2 central midfielders, Moses Nyman and Yamil Assad, who's playing as an 8 right now. You could say 2 8s, you could say 2 6s. 2 wide players who are tucking in a little bit, Julian Gressel and Edison Flores. And up top, 2 forwards. And in this one, it was Rivas and Sorga were the 2 they went with. The one thing that jumped out to me that I thought was very, very interesting about them was how much they tried to have Gressel and Flores tuck inside to create space for your outside backs to get forward. Makes sense, right? Then you can create some overloads. The problem is when you build up out of the back. And I'll show you something to look for tomorrow that is not normal that DC did consistently that I think Atlanta can exploit. So DC in that 4-4-2-4, it's not really a 4-2-2-2 because Gressel and Flores aren't tucked in that far. Atlanta United, I think, will be in far more of a 4-6, 2 central midfielders, Moreno and Hindman, 2 wide players who will stretch the field as much as possible, although if it's Barco on the left, we know he will come inside, and a number 9. All right, so that creates some interesting matchups because DC will often have 2 central midfielders against Atlanta's 3. That's really good for a team that wants to control possession. Really strong for a team that wants to control possession. Why is that? So let's get Atlanta into an attacking phase. One thing we know is Julian Gressel and Edison Flores do not really like to come back and defend. It'll be kind of nominal defending from them. So DC will defend with 6. What does that mean for Atlanta? All right, you get your wingers up. You get your number 9 up. He's going to occupy your 2 center backs here. You get your 2 central midfielders up. You get Jeff Lorenowitz here. Your outside backs, you know they like to go up 2. And your 2 center backs. All right, what are your concerns if you're Atlanta United in this kind of shape? They have 2 forwards. You're going to have your 6 stay connected because you always want 1 extra person. We've seen so many times Jeff Lorenowitz in possession drops between the center backs. He's going to have to, in this case, be here with these guys so somebody is free at all times defensively. How many times have we seen Miles Robinson in that free role where he cleans everything up? If they decide to play a ball over the top, you've got 1 extra guy. You always want 1 extra guy in that position. Okay, you take care of that. So Lorenowitz has to sit a little bit deeper, stay connected. That way you don't have to go to 3 in the back. That way you can get more numbers forward. Why do you want to get more numbers forward? Because of your potential opportunities here. With Gressel and Flores not really wanting to play a whole lot of defense, that frees up Lennon and Bello to go. We know Barco is going to come inside. Jurgen Dahm will stretch the field over here. So you can create some 2v1s on DC's left back, Joseph Mora. Good defender. 2v1's hard for anybody to deal with. You can create those. That gives Dom the opportunity to come inside, run this channel, gives the opportunity to play a 1-2 out here. Brooks Lennon can come inside, and we've seen him do that effectively from a right-back position. So you like that matchup a lot. If it is Kubo Torres, if it's Adam John, if it's John Gallagher here, you want to make both of these guys work. Why? Because you really like Moreno and Hindman against Assad and Moses Nyman. That was who started in the Cincinnati match. Neither known for being stalwart defensively. Moreno, great in the dribble. Hindman, actually very underrated on the dribble. You want those 1v1 opportunities because if you do what you're supposed to here, you're creating a 2v1 out over here. You're creating a problem on this side where DC played Chris Aduya-Chem on the right side. You know if it's Ezekiel Barco, he wants to come inside and combine. Okay, if he comes here, he's going to occupy a center back. So you get 1v1, 1v1, 1v1 with Bello overlapping, 2v1 over here, 1v1 here. That helps you in 2 things. One, Atlanta United is a team that is very good in the 1v1s. It is a very simple way to build your game plan because you're not looking for chemistry. You're not looking for combinations. You're looking for George Bello running at Chris Aduiachim, like it. 2v1 over here, like it. Play to that side as much as possible. Ezekiel Barco coming inside, running at one of the center backs, Donovan Pines or Frederick Briant, you like that situation. Your center forward 1v1 with a center back, you like that for crosses, and Atlanta's been very good with crosses. And I already mentioned Moreno and Heineman 1v1 with those guys. When the turnover flips, when you lose possession, because you're going to go for these 1v1s, you're going to dribble at players, you're going to lose those out sometimes. That's okay. You're 1v1 defending. Now you have to stay locked in because what can happen? Nyman and Assad especially, both are better on the ball than they are defensively. Nyman has no problem breaking possession here. So if let's say it's Moreno there. If Moreno loses the dribbling battle here and he lets Nyman go, then what happens? This is where their transition can be a problem. Then everybody's chasing back. Then you've got to be careful. But if you are 1v1 and you lose possession to Nyman here, you've got to control it. You've got to stay in front and maintain it. Because if you do, that gives your outside backs time to recover, to deal with Flores and Gressel. You've got matchup there. You've got control here with 3v2. You're good, and you can drop and recover. But something we've talked about since the Dallas game that Atlanta has done better is when they've lost possession, they've immediately pressed. This is why you immediately press. Because DC can hurt you in transition because of Gressel and Flores, because their lack of defending helps them in transition, because they're looking to break. We know Gressel's going to drift out here. Flores is fine coming inside. Okay, you've got to be careful in those moments. But here's the other thing about something DC does when you do give them possession that I thought was really interesting, and I think it's something Atlanta can exploit. So I mentioned it. We see Atlanta when they're going to, we'll get Atlanta all the way back here. When Atlanta's going to build up out of the back, what do you see a lot of times? The outside backs go up high. These guys go up here. Your forwards in this area. Jeff Lorenowitz drops in, right? That's what we're used to seeing. That gives Moreno and Heineman the ability to come in. Okay, cool. That's how they build out of the back. How does DC build out of the back often in this shape? Now, Cincinnati let them do it, too. This is what they did that was really different. So, Chris Aduiachim likes to go forward. He's going to step up. Your center backs didn't split like this, like you're used to. They didn't split wide to leave a gap for Nyman or Assad to come back. What they did was both outside backs went forward. The center backs didn't split. They shifted to the right, and Yamil Assad dropped in here. He dropped in as kind of a left center back in the build-up phase. That's not normal. Why is it not normal? Because what happens is then Moses Nyman is stuck by himself. If you have a turnover in the build-up phase, and Pines, Briant, Assad are all prone to that potentially, you're stuck. You're really stuck with possession. You're really stuck with a transition. So what Atlanta needs to do in these moments, when they play in that way, Dom and Barco have to come inside. Your number 9 has to come here. You match up there. I like Jurgen Damm pressing Yamil Assad in an unfamiliar part of the field. I really like that situation, and Atlanta needs to look for it every possibility they get when DC tries to build. Then you have Moreno and Heineman lurking. So they're going to be trying to deal with Gressel and Flores. But if you can play to the inside of them and pick off anything to Nyman, jump that line, jump in front, make it difficult for them to find him free, you're good. You also want them to play to the teenager in the middle of the park and make him do good things against you. Not likely for a young player to handle that pressure. And then again, you've got the cover to deal with anything else. You deal with their outside backs. You got your center backs here. You've got Lorenowitz free. If they build up that way with Yamil Assad dropping into that left center back position, Atlanta United can really exploit that in a big way. I was really surprised to see it. It wasn't just an anomaly. They did it multiple times. Assad or Nyman, neither one's really comfortable dropping in as the middle of the center backs here. So they're going to do that. And then a lot of times when they did try to build out, these guys got really wide And they left Donovan Pines by himself to try to find his way out of it. That's a tough spot for a young player. You like that situation too. So Atlanta's got a couple things that they can really enjoy if DC tries to build up play that way. Those are a couple things to look for tactically from DC. Still taking questions. Tweet them in to us at Soccer Down Here, to me at Longshoe. Also, share them in the Twitch pitch, twitch.tv/soccerdownhere. What do you think about the tactics? What questions do you have about those tactics? It's two different kinds of formations. It's not a situation where it's two teams that generally play the same way. We've seen DC play in a 4-2-3-1, which is going to be very comparable. Atlanta, you would expect to have a little bit of a quality advantage in those situations, which you're good with. But if DC plays the 4-4-2, those are the things to watch for and how you can exploit it. Atlanta's strengths, as we wait for a few more questions, it's the wide play for me. It is Jurgen Damm. It is Ezekiel Barco. It is George Bello. It's Brooks Lennon running at Joseph Mora, Chris Adui-Achim, making Gressel and Flores defend, making them have to come back and defend, because they're not going to hurt you deep in their own final third, in their defensive third. That's fine. You want to leave it to Nyman or Assad stepping forward, and you want to leave it to Eric Sorga or Gelman Rivas trying to do it themselves. You want to leave it to them. You like that situation, so you want to push them out wide. Jurgen Damm becomes a critical player here for me in multiple ways, what we just talked about with the pressure, but also with his combination plays. Had a good connection with Brooks Lennon. Those two have played very well together in their limited minutes. And Shiva says, I think Kubo should start and build chemistry with Damm. I would also be great with Kubo starting, because he does have that relationship with Jurgen Damm. They are on the same page quite often. So you'd like to get them together, if possible, on the field. If Kubo can get you past the 60-minute mark, I think you start him. And I think your best lineup to start, if everybody is fully healthy, is Bello, is Robinson. I'm not expecting Escobar. So Robinson and Meza as your two center backs. I have been surprised to see Robinson on the left side of that and Meza on the right. It was reversed early in the season. Robinson's played on the left of Walks. Maybe he's just stayed on that left side. He's growing more comfortable there. When he can come back to his right foot, he can be dangerous. His left foot's all right, too, though. Meza is very good with the right foot from that right side, hitting that long diagonal. Brooks Lennon at right back. Jeff Lorenowitz says your six. Your two central midfielders, Heinemann and Marcelino Moreno. Ezekiel Barco on the left, Jurgen Damm on the right, Kubo Torres up top. That is what I think is the best lineup for this team right now, if everybody's healthy. If Escobar is healthy, he comes into that lineup probably for Meza, which I would not have expected to say early in the season. I think you want Brooks Lennon at right back because of what he can do going forward, and he can defend well too. Escobar is a little better at center back right now. The combination of Meza with Escobar on the right is not as strong as Escobar in the middle and Lennon on the right, in my opinion. No, I'm not starting over Ragamuffin, but welcome. Welcome for coming in. Rope says, I was just thinking that who starts up top if Kubo's healthy? Do you put him in, or do you have John or Gallagher? I think it's Kubo. Kubo has put himself in dangerous positions. When you look at the numbers for the season, Kubo has less time, but his XG is better than both John and Gallagher. He is getting scoring opportunities. Look, he hasn't converted, but he's getting in those positions more than John and Gallagher are, and they've played more minutes. Maybe Gallagher and Torres are a little more comparable, but still, Torres is second in XG for the year on the team. Shows you how much this team has struggled to score goals. Barco's number one. I think Kubo Torres is your starter. And I think a lot of it is down to that combination play and that connection with Jurgen Damm. You want Kubo Torres in this team if he is able to go, and I would think he is. If he can get you 60 after a normal week of training, I think he starts. And then you bring on John or Gallagher in the second half, depending on what you need. Ropes asks about Escobar's injury. Didn't go into detail on it in the media availability. I know, no big surprise. Stephen Glass said that they were hopeful that he could be available for this weekend, but it didn't sound all that positive to me. I'm not expecting it. I'm expecting that he could be a go for Wednesday. And when you have such a quick turn, you do have to think about games in bunches like that. you'd rather have him for Wednesday and next Saturday as opposed to, or next Sunday, as opposed to just this game and then not be able to play in the next two. I'll take 2 of the 3. And if this buys him a little more time, I think that's the best way to go. Especially because, look, Mesa's fine. Mesa did a good job against Toronto. So you have some depth. You don't have to play an injured Franco Escobar. I do want to get into a little bit on Ezekiel Barco's injury. He spoke to the media this week. We talked to Doug Robertson this morning on SDH and talked about Ezekiel Barco's quad injury, and that's what he said it was. It was in the quadriceps. It was inflammation. That's a difficult injury, and Atlanta United fans should remember Joseph Martinez and the quad injury he had that he suffered on international duty with Venezuela in 2017. It took him a while to come back. Quad injuries can absolutely have what was described the whole time by the coaching staff, by Darren Eales, by Carlos Bocanegra, as a situation where Barco was able to train, and then it didn't feel right, and then he went to modified training, and then he came back to train, and it didn't feel right, and it wasn't getting healthy the way you want. A quad can affect other things, too. I injured my quad in high school soccer, and we were going into the final stretch of the season, and we were not a very deep team, and I played in a playoff match I probably shouldn't have because my quad injury was getting so inflamed, it was making my knee swell up, and it was affecting my whole leg. So I basically played like RoboCop in that game, and I had knee braces and a quad brace, and it was bad. My mobility was shot. So if you're a player who's had injury issues and you're worried about injuring it again, and the team's worried about you injuring it again, and you also could become a player who gets kicked in your knee that is becoming swollen, and that's total speculation on my part. That's from my experience. You've got situations that you can make worse by trying to play through it. You couldn't do that with a player in Ezekiel Barco. You just were not able to do that. If he wasn't comfortable, he can't play, and a quad is something that can go again really easily. It's very frustrating. Bart says it's almost as if the team had been less opaque about the nature of his injury. We wouldn't have been circling black helicopters and been somewhat pathetic to Barco and the club. It's speculation on what the reaction would have been. Personally, I don't know if the reaction would have been all that different towards Barco. I think some people have made their minds up about Ezekiel Barco. It's sympathetic. Thank you, Bart. I was kind of wondering where that terminology was coming from. Barco, I think some people have already made their minds up. And it's a shame because he's a special player, and I think he will be recognized as a special player. He has had some bad luck with injuries. I don't think he's injury-prone because you've had a variety of different injuries. He did have a quad injury back in 2018, if I remember correctly, that he pulled at the end of preseason. Because remember, he missed the beginning of the 2018 season, made his debut about a month in against NYC at home. I think it was a quad injury then. Last year, it was a contact injury. He was getting kicked on the inside of the knee, and he was having problems. Now, what I don't know is if there's any connection between those previous injuries. If his knee is still something that they are concerned about, that they worry about, and the quad could have been making that act up. Look, I don't know. Not a doctor here. I don't have access to Ezekiel Barco's medical records. But also, a team is not going to say, yes, his right quad is injured. Yes, he's pulled it. Please kick him in his right leg. You're not going to do that. And I don't know which quad it is. So I guess now teams are just going to kick him in both legs and see what happens. They've been doing that all season, so it's nothing new. You get managers and you get teams that are very forthcoming with their injury histories. Usually those are not very good teams. Think about the best teams and think about the way they handle these things. They keep everything close to the vest. Jose Mourinho wouldn't tell you anything unless he had to. Sir Alex Ferguson wouldn't tell you anything, and sometimes he was supposed to and he didn't. That's just the nature of it. It is. So I know it's frustrating. But normally when these things come out, it's because people go out and have their sources and they find out what it is and they report it that way. The team doesn't have to tell you everything. I don't know if it would have changed the sympathy level towards Bart. And it's a shame that I don't know. I just don't really think it would. There have been people who've questioned him going back to the beginning of 2019. So who knows? It's all a matter of preference. And I've been a little surprised that everything has combined to where there is not that sympathy towards the club in some of these situations. Again, I'm biased, and you guys know that. I'm not going to lie to you. You know that. I mean, I call the team's games. But it's been a little weird the way it's turned so fast, even with this kind of stuff. I totally agree. Ropes, not surprising being injured when he's fouled as much as he is. Now, a quad, probably not from that. I mean, I guess it could be, and that's something that was not really said, and probably for very specific reasons. Is it a quad injury from contact? Is it a quad injury from a pull? Don't know, and don't know which quad, thankfully. I don't want to tell anybody if I knew. Good point. Imagine if the refs in MLS protected star players better. It's not a new conversation, but it is something that MLS absolutely has to do. And Pro has to be involved in this, and U.S. Soccer has to be involved in this. This is something that has to come from the very top. This is something that young referees have to be taught. Skilled players on the ball should not be getting kicked on a regular basis. That is not the style of soccer this country should be wanting to promote. It's very frustrating that some very influential people in the game in this country don't seem to enjoy these kinds of players. These are the players that change games. I love workmanlike players. I was a workmanlike player. I love players who are work, effort, run yourself into the ground. I always wanted to be somebody who was a magician with the ball. Those are the ones that are, I don't know, they're the ones that capture your imagination, in my opinion. Those are the ones that don't come along every day. Those are the ones that you don't bend the rules to protect. You just call the game as it should be called, and you don't favor the workmanlike player over the player who is great on the ball. There should never be a question about a player holding on to the ball too long, and that's why they're fouled so much. That should never be a question. We want our young players to hold on to the ball. We want our young players to have the ball at their feet and solve the problem themselves with the ball at their feet. Yes, they need to pass when the time is to pass. But the decision is not, do I get rid of the ball or do I get kicked? The decision should be, I've got an opportunity here to shoot. I've got an opportunity here to pass. I've got an opportunity here to dribble. What do I do? That's what the decision should be. Not, I don't want to get kicked, so I'm going to get rid of it. That should not be entering into people's minds. Referees need to call the game so skilled players are not getting kicked out of games. This is like 1990 World Cup, Diego Maradona getting kicked all over Italy again. This is exactly how it sounds. It's the 86 World Cup. You can go on in the history of the game. Lionel Messi has been treated this way in Spain. Every skilled player goes through these things. Ezekiel Barco comes from a culture in Argentina where the dribbler is cherished. The dribbler is celebrated. Here it seems like it's a bad thing. Should never be a bad thing. Never, ever a bad thing. Shiva says, FDB would say everything almost too much. Yeah, that's actually a good point. Sometimes he needed a bit of a filter, and sometimes he would maybe share a little bit too much. Hey, it's flipped, and maybe that's the whiplash that people are dealing with. If it is, look, I get it. I still think it's a little overblown, but yeah, I would rather have the opponent not know everything about my team coming into it. 100% would rather have that. No question to me. Center ref tomorrow, Ropes, is Armando Villarreal. He's reffed 11 matches this year, one of the most regular referees this season. The stats are a little wonky on who scored. I think he's actually had a couple more because they, for some reason, separate the MLS's back games out, and they shouldn't, not the group stage games anyway. So the stats I have on Villarreal, fouls per match, he's about in the middle, 25.36 per match. That's pretty typical. Very low on penalties per match. 9th in yellows per match, just over 4 that he shows per match, and 1 red card in 11 matches. Villarreal, somebody that I generally like, so I think we'll be okay here. I don't think he'll call the game super loose. These two teams, honestly, I mean, Atlanta fouls more than DC. They're 6th in fouls now. That number has dramatically jumped over the last couple of months. DC fouls a little over 11.5 times per game. Atlanta's just over 13. Fouls suffered. Atlanta's still the number one team in being fouled in this league, almost 15 times a match. DC's fouled just over 12, and that's 8th. So both teams will commit some fouls. Both teams are used to getting fouled. Kind of feels like that plays into Villarreal's situation. When you look at fouls suffered, you total them up. Just over 27 between the two in an average match. Villarreal calls just over 25, so should match up with this pretty well. I'm not too worried about that. Let's see here. Yeah, Bart, I'm kind of with you on this. Barco needs a special color shirt in training. He needs like the Matt Ryan, I think he generally wears a green shirt. The don't hit him shirt. We don't need him to get hit. You can defend him, stand him up. Don't kick him. Please, don't kick him in training. Hopefully he hasn't been kicked in training. That would be a bad thing. Shiva, at soccer, you got to be good on the ball, not off the ball, right? You need both. I can't remember who said it. I've always heard it associated with Maradona. I don't think Maradona actually said it, but it was talking about the 86 Argentina World Cup team where it was Maradona and the gang. I mean, it was Diego's team. He was the one everybody looked to. He was the one who delivered in the big moments. But the conversation about that team, they described it as you need a pianist and you need piano carriers. And that's one of those that gets talked about a lot. They also say water carriers. You need both in a team. You can't have a team of all great piano players. Take it like a band, right? You can't have, 3 different guys who are going to solo on lead guitar. It doesn't work. They're going to fight over the solos. You need that amazing guitar player. You'd like the amazing singer, too, who can give you something different to the music. But you need the rhythm section. You need the drummer to set the tone. You need the bass player to do a lot of the things that go unnoticed. You need those guys, too, to have a successful group. In a team like Atlanta, you need the Jeff Larenowitzes. You need the Mo Adams when they're on the field. You need a Brooks Lennon who can run all day. You need a Franco Escobar who covers so much ground. But you also need a Marcelino Moreno who gives you a little bit of both. He's special because he does give you the virtuoso kind of stuff, but he does give you that work rate alongside it. You need a Barco, though. You needed a Pitti. You need those guys to be able to elevate you. If you just have a team of hardworking guys, you're going to be limited. Just like you're going to be limited if you have a team of all virtuoso guys with nobody who can do the dirty work. So you got to have balance, and I think Atlanta's getting close to finding it. With a Barco back in, this team should be more dangerous in the final third, with Jurgen Damm as well. Now it's time to deliver, and it's hard because you haven't had a lot of time together, but welcome to 2020 as we all try to figure it out. But Atlanta's strengths, I think, are going to be out wide. I think it's Damm, I think it's Barco, I think it's Lennon, I think it's Bello. If those guys, let's say 3 of those 4 have good matches tomorrow, I think Atlanta wins because they'll take advantage of DC out wide. Going back to the protected conversation, and it's something I think you got to be careful about too with, do you overprotect? And it is a tough balance for referees. Bart says, I will say that it's hard to make sure special players are protected on the ball while also allowing them to continue to dribble with the ball when they remain in possession. I struggle to balance the advantage of possession and calling fouls against those players. But at some point, you do have to realize that fouling is absolutely tactical and needs to be stopped. Totally with you. That's one of my biggest frustrations with how referees manage matches. When referees have, I think, more of a soccer playing background, and not everybody does. Not everybody at this level does. Not everybody played at a high level here. You see the ones like a Jair Marufo, for example. Marufo doesn't call a lot of fouls. He's usually one of the lowest fouls per match guys in the league. But when you see some of that tactical stuff, and you know it's not trying to play the ball, it's totally just a break-up play, he'll get on it, and he calls it. And you need referees to do that. When teams aren't allowing the opposition to play because they are consistently fouling in certain parts of the field, it can be incredibly frustrating if you are a team that wants to play with the ball. And I give Atlanta credit in that they haven't chucked that because the referees have made it difficult to play that way and played bad soccer. They're trying to play good soccer. Sometimes it doesn't come off. Sometimes the opposition takes that away from them. Sometimes the referees have a hand in that. Sometimes it just doesn't click. But I would much rather have a team that tries to play the right way and tries to play good soccer as opposed to a team that just boots it long and sees what happens. I don't enjoy that game that much. It's just, there's not a lot to it. Some of it's luck. I mean, if you're just playing it long all the time, you're looking for 50-50s. You're looking for coin flips. It's not the way that I enjoy the game anyway. Gustavo, welcome in from Buenos Aires. How do you feel about your Independiente draw in the Copa Sudamericana, Gustavo? Ezekiel had a knee injury in his best leg, his right leg, so he has his insecurities about being kicked. I will always defend my Independiente player, but it's clear that rumors can be more dangerous than injuries. In some people's mind, they can. That is a good point about the knee, and I believe that was the knee last year, was the right knee. It does get in your head. We've seen this in the history of the game, where young, talented, skillful players, it gets in their head about being kicked. It does. It affects them. And it's a shame, and it should not happen. And again, referees in this country need to do a better job of not allowing that to happen, but it does. We've seen it over the years. Sometimes it's getting kicked and leading to injuries. Sometimes it becomes a thing where you're afraid to take people on. You're afraid to play in the same way. That has made you special because you're afraid of getting kicked. I want Barco to play through that. I really do. The rumor stuff, we've talked about it a ton. There's just not really anything out there at the moment. There hasn't been since the beginning of September with the Sevilla conversation that, unless I missed it, originated from a fan blog in Sevilla. Now, it did get picked up by some journalists in Spain, but it did not start there. Prior to that, it was Barco on TIC, I believe, or it might have been Fox Sports Argentina, where he said that his agent had been contacted by Fiorentina, who he said by name, and Liga teams in France. And it came out a little bit later that Lyon was a team who was interested, and that was from a reputable source. But you're going back to the summer. So I'm putting the absence we've seen from him on injuries, not on rumors because they just don't make sense. But the rumors have affected some of the perception, for sure. And it's a shame, again, because there was really nothing to go on them. There were no real rumors out there about a transfer. So, could he go in the winter window? We'll have to see. The market is so hard to call right now in Europe, in South America, worldwide. A lot of it depends on when teams are able to get fans back in the stands and when revenues start to bounce back a little bit as to how much they're going to spend. We just don't know. Normally, I would have said yes, because I would have felt like he'd be coming off of an Olympics this summer. It would have been the right time. But now, who knows? And that's the hard thing for him, and that's the hard thing for the club. Rope says, it's nice seeing Atlanta United with a minus on BetMGM. Yeah, it's been a minute, hasn't it? That is always good. They're favored, and they need to play like favorites tomorrow. It's a key. It's absolutely a key. Shiva, we must love the team video from Joseph Rometti and Dom regarding Barco. They got us good on that one. I mean, it's a little Easter egg in there thrown in to get people going because you knew people would react that way, right? I mean, I thought it was kind of funny once I saw it, because when I first started hearing about it, I'm like, what's going on? What happened? It's funny. Dom's a prankster. Come on. Jürgen Damm probably led that one. Joseph's also a prankster. So, what's up, Colonel? Welcome in. We talked a little bit about Dundalk this morning, so glad they played well. I watched the first half of that, and they were absolutely in it. So, very glad they played well. Hopefully they can steal a result here and have something to hang their hat on at the end of the Europa League. Other things about tomorrow. So we've talked about what's new about DC. We've talked about Atlanta's strengths, which I think are going to be out wide. How to attack DC. It's going to be that pressure. It's going to be the wide play. I think it's Kubo Torres, and you want to give him some service. You want to give him some crosses. He does find himself in good positions. He does make good movements inside the 18 to create space for himself. He just has to find the back of the net. I feel like if he does, maybe things get going a little bit. He has been a streaky forward in his career. You could really use a good hot streak right about now for Kubo Torres. How can DC hurt Atlanta? DC is a team, when you compare the attacking stats between the two, look, it's one of the opponents that you're going to find that is comparable to Atlanta United this season. DC has 0.05 shots per 90 minutes more. DC's in 24th place. Atlanta's in 25th. DC has one more expected goal this season. The way they've gotten there is different. Atlanta's a good passing team. DC's not really. Atlanta's a strong possession team. DC is not. About 10 percentage points difference between the two. Long passing, Atlanta's much better. Atlanta switches the point of attack a lot more. DC gets a little more tunnel vision. If they work down the right side, they're going to stay on the right side. They're not going to switch to the left. If you're defending that, you can cheat a little bit. You can pinch into that side. You can make it more difficult for them to play on that side because they're not really prone to switching it. They switch the point of attack almost 10 times less than Atlanta per match. That's noticeable. That's a big deal. They are more aggressive defensively, and that's something Atlanta's going to have to be careful about because that's where DC can hurt you, in my opinion. If it is Rivas, if it is Sorga up top, then those are two very aggressive forwards. They can cause turnovers. You've got to be smart in your possession. You've got to skip the line sometimes if you're under pressure. Gressel, you know what he can do from a service perspective out wide on the right. He's not really involved in their build-up as much as he should be. I don't think they've really figured out how to use him yet. On the left side, Flores is the individual player who worries me the most. I think he's their most dynamic player. He can come inside and overload in the middle. With Nyman and Assad, you know both of them can step up a little bit higher. They could get caught defensively when they do it, but you know they can hurt you going forward. Flores from an individual perspective, but it's DC's pressure and aggressiveness. Atlanta can't have those mistakes that we haven't seen in a while. They can't have those tomorrow. If they do, DC will thrive on them because I don't think DC creates a whole lot from the run of play tomorrow. That's something they've really struggled about. Rippend, if you've got a topic, go ahead and throw it in, and we'll see if we can get to it. We've got a few more minutes left here on the show. Ropes, it'd be interesting what team would pick him up, talking about Ezekiel Barco. What league would be best? I think Italy would be amazing for him. I think Italy would be a great fit for Ezekiel Barco. Spain wouldn't be bad, but I think Italy would be a very good league for him. Fiorentina would be a really good fit. It's an aggressive ownership group. Rocco Camiso wants to get Fiorentina back to the glory days. That would be a nice spot for him. But there's other teams in Italy that could be a good fit as well. And you've always got that Argentine, Italian, like cultural similarity at times. That helps when you get settled. I think Barco would feel comfortable in Italy. I think Italy would be a great fit. And Fiorentina, when that name popped up, that kind of got my antenna up a little bit because that felt like it made sense. Spain can make sense, although Sevilla, I don't know how much he would play at a Sevilla because you're talking about the defending Europa League champs, a very good team. France could work too. I don't rate France nearly as high as the others. And if he has the opportunity to go to Italy or Spain, you go to either one of those above even a Lyon, in my opinion. The French league, yeah, I think he could do well there. I wouldn't go to a team lesser than Lyon if I was him, going to France. I think he could have better opportunities. But again, the market, we just really don't know. Just don't know. Jared_Smith chiming in. What's the over-under on how many fouls against Yamil? And Thad Dooley sets it at 5. I'll take the under on 5, but just barely. I don't think they go at him here. Brooks Lennon might. If anybody does, Lennon might be the one who does. And Lennon would be the one who commits the one big foul on Yamil Assad. All of Yamil's old running buddies aren't here anymore. So he's got a few guys who are not going to go and try to get after him. But Brooks Lennon won't really care after what he did. If anybody does it, it would be Lennon. But I don't think it'll be more than 5. I don't. I think it'll be less than that. It is a subplot to keep an eye on. He was not punished for that. The disciplinary committee did show up this weekend. They did make some decisions, shockingly enough. They fined Leandro Gonzalez Perez for a horrible dive at the end of the Montreal match, and he deserved to be fined. It was terrible. They also suspended a player. We talked about it this morning. Hassani Dotson was injured on the play. Adam Lundqvist has been suspended for 2 matches, fined an undisclosed amount for serious foul play in the 8th minute of the Houston-Minnesota match where Hassani Dotson was injured, probably out for the rest of the year. This also, and I'll read from the disciplinary committee, reviewed under disciplinary committee parameter number 3, in which the disciplinary committee may act where the professional referees organization acknowledges an on-field referee or video review error, and where the committee is unanimous that the play warrants at least a one-match suspension, as a clear and unequivocal red card is egregious and or repeat behavior in nature, and or the committee must act to protect player safety or the integrity of the game. Good on them for doing it, because this is one that deserved it. However, they should have done this 2 other times this season involving Atlanta United matches. Nicholas Figal, Yamil Asad. Those are 2 situations that Pro, in the Figal case, from what I've been told, Pro did acknowledge, or at least a representative of Pro acknowledged that there was an error. He should have been sent off. So if that is true, it was not announced publicly. And if that is true and it was communicated to the committee, then the committee was not unanimous in deciding that Figal's forearm/elbow was an issue of player safety. That feels very incorrect to me. I'm glad they got it right in Lundqvist's case, but they missed it on Figal, they missed it on Yamil Asad. Every time they do something, man, it's going to come up. Ropes thinks that Jeff Larenowitz would foul his mother. He might, but he'd help her up at least. He wouldn't hurt her. Brooks Lennon might be looking for a little revenge. Larenowitz would not hurt him. He might kick him pretty hard one time and then help him up and probably pat him on the head. Bart says, can we apply any match result sanctions on DC from the 10-3 match to this one and just take the 3-0 forfeit? It is unbelievable that MLS has not announced anything about that. They played an ineligible player in a match. The 4th official, I don't know what happened to him. Haven't heard a word. Has DC been fined? Last time it happened, the team got fined $100,000 combined between monopoly money and real money. And what are we doing, MLS? Why are we not announcing this? They played a player who was not in the match. It's incredible that we have not gotten any announcement from that. There's been so many other things that I almost forgot about it, to be honest, and that's sad because it's been a long time now and there has been no announcement. Come on, Major League Soccer. Punish DC for severely screwing up that whole situation. And if it's not DC's fault for some reason, although that's not what I heard it was, if it's not, then you need to say that. And you need to say, well, the 4th official got it wrong and inputted it wrong or whatever. Because that can't happen. That's an embarrassment. And we need to stop having some of these embarrassments in this league because we want this league to be taken a little more seriously. Playing players who are not on lineup cards, having some of these challenges not get properly punished, that's embarrassing. And that's very, very frustrating. All right, we're going to see if we got any questions on the Twitters as we start to wrap up. Kefsey wants to know the number of saves Brad Gazan has to make tomorrow, and why is it 1? I can buy that. I'll take the over on that. I think it'll be 2 or 3. DC worries me on set pieces a little bit too, so I think they'll test him. I don't know how much they test him. I think they'll test him. I'll take the over 1. I'll put some Smarties on it or something. But yeah, the over, it'll be 2 or 3. It shouldn't be a lot. I don't know how many chances Atlanta gets either. That's the thing. I don't know how many they get. Doesn't matter if you get 1. Doesn't matter if you get a goal. And that's what it comes down to. You have to put some pressure on this DC team. If they try to build up out of the back and they do it in that weird way with Yamil Asad dropping to the left, punish them for that. Because there's a reason why teams don't do that. It doesn't provide you really strong balance. If they get so far wide with Assad and with Briant, and it's Donovan Pines by himself in the middle, punish them for that. Kubo Torres has to be in his face. Marcelino Moreno has to jump forward and take away something from Pines as he tries to escape. If they play in that manner, you have to punish them for it. Cincinnati didn't do it. Atlanta has to tomorrow. You know, can't let them find Julian Gressel in dangerous spots. Can't let them find Edison Flores in dangerous spots. Those are 2 players who can hurt you. They can serve up good opportunities. The forwards really haven't gotten going for DC. They got 2 goals last time. They were both from defenders. It was Pines and Aduya Chim. You need to to make them suffer in this match. If Rivas or Sorga, you're not too worried about those guys. You have to be worried about them because they're professionals, but you don't want to let Gressel or Flores hurt you. You don't want to let Assad step forward and hurt you. You'll take your chances with the others. You got to make sure they're covered, and if Jeff is the number 6, he's going to have to stay connected if they play 2 up top. You've got to dominate possession. You can't get hurt in the transition if you're going to play a line of 4 against their 2 up top, because that can create 2v2 situations. You don't want that. Even with Miles Robinson, who can make up some of the ground, you don't want that. You don't want your game to come down to 1v1 situations or 2v2s. Colonel says, I spoke with Jeff's mother in Chester. Sweet lady. Jeff would not foul her, but he would hurt anyone who did. I don't know, Colonel. If Jeff had to win a game, I think he would foul her. He would pull the shirt back and commit the foul. He would not do anything to hurt his sweet mother. But he would commit the foul to win the match. He would. I think he would. I really think he would. But he'd make sure he didn't hurt his mother, that's for sure. Any final questions? Let's take them. We've got tonight in MLS a match. Nashville on kind of short rest, hosting New England. It's a toss-up. BetMGM's got it at Nashville plus 160, New England at plus 180. I'm taking Nashville with those kind of odds all day long. It is a kickoff just after 8:30. Nashville is coming together really well. Gary Smith's done a very good job with them. I want to see if they're able to get Yonder Cadiz into this team in a starting role, like what I saw from him. It's funny how they struggled to find a forward, and now that they added Cadiz, you got Daniel Rios who's playing well. You got Abu Dunladi who's playing pretty well. You got Derek Jones who's playing up top a little bit as a forward. But this is a dangerous team in Nashville. I think they're only going to get better and better as the season goes on. And they're very good defensively. They are what Atlanta would like to be the rest of the season. Strong defensively, not giving much away, but still a threat in the defensive or in the final third. And Atlanta hasn't consistently done that yet. If you get Dom, if you get Moreno, if you get Barco healthy, if you get Kubo Torres finally finding the back of the net, I think this team has a different feel, and what Nashville has done is something I think Atlanta can do with how good they are defensively. Jarrett taking Nashville hot at the right time, and they've been riding Lady Luck. Lady Luck can get out of the way, get out of hand a little bit. I think they're just good. I don't think it's Lady Luck. I really don't. And I think Handwalla Bwana. It's a tricky name to say. Handwalla Bwana. Getting him from Seattle, I think that's going to help. They traded Jimmy Medrando, who wasn't really factoring into the team. So you've added another dynamic player. Shiva, yeah, Mike Conti thinks Nashville's a contender for everything this season. I'm not that high on Nashville. I push back on that a little bit. But you look at the Eastern Conference and where Nashville is right now at number 8, I don't think they finish number 8. Red Bulls are ahead of them. New York City's ahead of them. I don't rate New York City right now. New England's ahead of them. We'll see how this goes tonight. I think Nashville can get to as high as 5. They're 4 points out of that right now. Orlando, Columbus, Philly, and Toronto feel like a step beyond. But, I think Nashville can get all the way up to 5. I think the better expansion team of the two this year, it is unquestionably Nashville. Even with the additions that Miami's made, it's Nashville. I think they've built a proper team the way they intended to. Now, we'll see if Cadiz is the guy to really put him over the top. If he is, they're a problem. And if they can maintain being hot at this time, they have dropped some points in some bad ways. That's why I'm not as high. There's been some results that I'm like, see, they're still figuring it out. Let's see how it goes. Final ones from the crew. HevZXYZ. I think that is the first time I have seen you, Hev. Thank you for hanging out. Jeff's mom would stand up and get in someone's face, and he would choke slam her. Man, I don't think he'd do that. That would be like, threatening pain. No, he would not allow that to happen. I disagree, Hev. I totally disagree. Jarrett says, talking about Nashville, they had 2 deflected goals last time out. Nothing to apologize for, but they've been good and have had some stuff go their way. Well, they've had some stuff go against them too. So I think it's evened out. I want nothing to do with the team playing well and getting bounced. Getting bounces. Whatever. Yeah, thanks, Jarrett. Good typing there. Good job. Well done. I think they're not just a team that's getting bounces. I think they're a good team. And I think they beat New England tonight, and I think that puts them even with New York City on the same number of games played going into the weekend. I could absolutely see that tonight. I'll go Nashville 2-0. Let me go Nashville 2-0 tonight. Thanks for hanging out. Appreciate it. These are kind of fun when we get to do the run-up a little bit differently, and it becomes a little bit more of a Q&A, and y'all have to listen to me prattle on for an hour. But the run-up has been a fun project this year. We will continue it. We're looking actually to do something in the post-game variety next year. Stay tuned for that after the full-time report. Because, I'm not doing enough things on a game day. We'd like to do even more. So we're working on it. We're figuring that out. If there's anything specifically you would like from a content perspective in the post-game space, drop us a line. Let us know. We're always looking for new ideas, but that's something we want to add for next year. This has been a fun one to add. Tomorrow, we've got the Power Hour in the morning. 10 o'clock. Same time as El Clasico. So it will be on in the background. We'll give you any updates on that match tonight with Nashville and New England, any morning of the match updates between Atlanta and D.C., anything else that happens in the world of soccer between tonight and tomorrow morning. We'll talk about it on the Power Hour from 10 to 11 tomorrow. The AT&T countdown to kickoff will be on Atlanta United social media channels about 3 o'clock tomorrow with the lineup. I can't wait to see it, because if this is the first time we get to see Kubo, Barquito, Marcelino, and Jurgen Damm in that front four, I will be very, very excited for this match. So about 3 o'clock on Atlanta United social media channels, you'll get the lineup. You'll get Mike and I talking about it. 3:30, we're on 92.9 The Game and the radio.com app for the Five Stripes Countdown. Kickoff will be about 4:08. You can listen to that all the usual places. It is on Fox Sports Southeast as well tomorrow. Full-time report for us is an hour after the final whistle. Breaking everything down from it, highlights. We'll hopefully have some post-match sound from Stephen Glass. And your questions. You can always tweet at us during the match at Longshoe and at Mike Conti 929, and we'll get to it at halftime and postgame. So all of that is coming up tomorrow. Get some rest, enjoy the Nashville-New England game, and we'll talk to you in the morning for the Power Hour. Mucha plata, y'all.